All right. Welcome back, folks, to the FF Face Off, part of the Face Off Sports Network. We're getting you ready for your fantasy football drafts. If you haven't done them yet, you're probably doing them this weekend, or you're doing them within the next few days after that because it is almost football season. Thank God. So, we are going to be doing a mock draft today. So, please feel free to join along here. If you have any questions, please feel free to fire them into the chat. We'll answer them as we go through here, explain some of our picks, talk about some of our strategies. Also, of course, as always, if you're watching on YouTube, please feel free to hit the like button, the subscribe button, bell icon, notified every single time we go live. Last but not least, go to fffaceoff.com for all of your fantasy football, NFL sports betting needs. My name is Michael Hopp. You can follow me on X at the FF Realist. Joining me, who looks like he's getting ready to have some fun today. His name is Mr. Pete Nova. He can be followed at Supernova38. That's 2 R's, of course. Pete, how's about you?
It is good. I realized we don't have a thumbnail for the show, so I just whipped one up really quick.
Okay.
I am going to drink a lot of alcohol later today, but I am not in the wedding party at the wedding I'm going to, but my fiance is. So I figured I got a couple hours to spare. Why not jump on and do a mock draft? So that's kind
Yeah.
of where we are today.
I'm going to have a little, only just to ease my nerves, and only because I'm jealous that you're going to be doing it so much. I'm just going to have a little bit now. So just a bit.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? All right. So we're going to do this mock draft right now. This is going to be your traditional half point. It's going to be one quarterback, two running backs, three wide receivers, tight end, one flex. We are going to do 5 bench spots. And while we're not opposed to them, there'll be no kicker, there'll be no defense. So there you go.
Yeah.
So
Why
we're
don't
going
we
to
give
do
it
that.
give it like a minute or two?
Give it a minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
give it a minute or two. I'm gonna send it in the chat anyway and see if anybody wants to join. I also got our thumbnail up, and I'm going to switch over to my phone because I don't want to have to deal with my laptop possibly dying mid draft. But let me send in the chat. Believe the link should be there on YouTube. Albert, what's going on?
What up?
Albert says hello. Yeah, you link for the draft, mock draft, if you want to do it. It is in the chat. I'm going to send it one more time so everybody has it. If you want, feel free to join. We're going to go in about 2 minutes here. And give me 1 second off. I'm going to remove myself from the stage and add me and my cell phone. Give me 1 second.
Good times. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, again, guys, feel free to, if you have any questions, whether it's the draft we're doing or if you've got a draft tonight or today or tomorrow. I have got one tonight that I completely forgot about. It's actually a 20-man league, so that's going to be interesting. Then tomorrow I got the old home league draft. I believe this is year 17, I think, for the home league. So missing a bunch of picks because last year I chose not to die when I lost Rodgers in week 1 and Chubb shortly thereafter. So I'm missing some picks, but we're going to do the best we can. Albert has joined us in this draft. Looks like he's picking from the 5 spot. So thank you, Albert. Pete is picking from the 7th spot, and I'm going to be back at EO 11. I always tend to, when we do these mock drafts, I'm always picking up front. Always taking McCaffrey. Let's dial it back. Let's pick at the back. Get some perspective. So anyway, Pete, you are sharing the camera of your keyboard currently, so that looks interesting. Oh, yeah, there you are. Okay, yeah. And now you're on mute still too. So
Sorry, we're doing all right so far. Good.
that's it. That's fantastic. All right.
I'm trying to make sure I'm in here. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. So while I'm trying to buy myself some time to make sure that I get in here, why don't we talk about Jamar Chase? Do you think that deal gets done over the weekend? Do you think it's going to carry in, or
I'm starting to think it carries into week 1. I'm starting to think he's not out there.
Yeah.
Now I mean, I'm not going to bet on it. It's not a strong stance like I had with Brandon Ayuk, but I mean, I don't know. I'm starting to think that he's not going to be there week 1.
Yeah.
Which sucks, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think I think he'll end up being there when it's all said and done.
Right.
I think think the Bengals honestly kind of just assumed like, hey, like we had more time. He's at camp, and I think now that he's kind of, it's not that he's holding out necessarily. I guess
he's there. He's holding it.
Now there's feedback. As I had to put you on this one because your other one you were frozen. Now you're not frozen.
Oh.
All right, let's add the other one back because now you're free. Now you're getting echoey. Let's do this. Let's move you there. Let's put you here. There we go. Sorry, no more musical screens.
Oh, jeez. All right, I'm all set. We can roll.
Okay, let's roll with this again. Regular traditional sleeper mock draft. It's going to be 12 teams, half point PPR. We got one quarterback. We got one tight end. I'm going to mute that because that's obnoxious. Quarterback, and then we've got tight end, obviously, 5 bench spots, no kicker, no defense. Albert picked 5th, taking Amon-Ra St. Brown. Pete, you are now on the clock. I mean, I didn't sit on it. You got 2 minutes to pick, but I mean, be able to get it. That's good sitting right there for Christ's sakes. And who'd you go?
Yeah, I took Brees Hall. I mean, I think Jamar Chase, getting him at the 108 is amazing. I would have went Jamar Chase pretty comfortably if Hall wasn't there. I would have taken him over Bijan as well. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Chase is falling to the 108 spot. It's great value. But I like Brees Hall. I think if I'm drafting right now, it's a combination of Lamb, CMC, and Brees Hall that I think should be the top 3 picks in my opinion. What about yourself?
Yeah, so as I'm at the back end of the draft with the 11th pick, I ended up going Saquon Barkley with my first pick, and then on the way back around, I took Garrett Wilson. So I think, we're starting to hear more and more chatter that, people are envisioning a Davante Adams-esque season out of Wilson with Aaron Rodgers, even though they also want to, in the same breath, discount Aaron Rodgers, but whatever. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, so I like that start. Again, this is a little different for me because I'm so used to drafting at the front of drafts this year. So, yeah, I dig the start so far. Get a top running back, get a what we hope to be a top wide receiver, and move it along. Albert, we're going to keep you updated on his draft because he joined us here on YouTube. He's a loyal listener. So he goes Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, Nico Collins. So wide receiver heavy to start it off. We'll see what he does in the 4th there. Pete, you're on the clock. How's your team looking so far?
Yeah, I went Brees Hall, Drake London, and DJ Moore. Deebo Samuel was there, and I think with the Ayuk signing, Deebo slips back in my rankings a little bit. I had Deebo up just in case Ayuk didn't sign, but yeah, DJ Moore is like my wide receiver 13, so getting him in the middle of the 3rd round at the 3.7 is pretty good for me. I like it so far. So it's Brees, Drake London, DJ Moore, and then you just went on the one. Well, you went the 3.11, 4.2. What about yourself? Who'd you take?
Yeah, I was inspired by Albert going wide receiver heavy, so I decided to follow the lead. I went with Malik Neighbors, and then I went with Jalen Waddle. So obviously we talked about Jalen Waddle on yesterday's show on our ADP, our final ADP risers and fallers of the year. Now that we're getting up to the season, so you can watch that in the archives. It's from yesterday, but he's got an injury. We're not sure what it is because they don't have to brief us on the type of injury until the season starts. So, but get him as my 3rd wide receiver. I will take that risk. So there you go. Pete. Yeah. You went, and looks like you're also following the lead as well. You now have 3 wide receivers.
Yeah, I went through receivers at Devonta Smith being there. Guys that were around him were Pittman, Flowers behind him, Tank Dell, and Mari Cooper. I risked it, and it worked out. I was thinking taking Trey McBride, but because tight end's so deep, and I figured I'd get another good elite one on the way back, but McBride did fall to me. I took Devonta Smith in the 4.6 spot. I'll take Trey McBride here. Oh wait, did he? He did fall to me, but I don't see him on the board anymore.
No, he didn't fall to you. He was taking Trey McBride
Oh,
was
you
taken
know
by
what?
team
I
one.
didn't. Yeah, I didn't slide my screen over. So
Womp
I
womp.
I am wrong there, but I am still pretty happy with Devonta. I get it. I'm kind of bummed because I'm super high on AJ Brown this year, but with the addition of Dotson, I think Smith is going to play in the slot a lot, and he's got really good value. I wouldn't even be surprised if Devonta finished over AJ. And this is coming from a guy who has AJ ranked as his wide receiver 6 this year. But yeah, I got 3 receivers. I have 3 receivers here. I am going to go Alvin Kamara and get my second running back. So I have Breece Hall and Kamara, and then London, DJ, and Devonta Smith.
All right. With all that being said, I am now back on the clock. We'll see where I'm going to head to here. Let's finagle around here. And you know what? I'm going to go one more wide receiver before I go another position. I'm going to go George Pickens here. The dust has now settled. Brandon Ayuk is in San Francisco for the long haul, so it seems. So I will buy back in on George Pickens, especially being my 4th wide receiver. He was another player that we mentioned on our ADP Risers and Fallers show. His ADP had dipped, but have to imagine in the coming days that's going to go up now that we know the fate of Brandon Ayuk. So we'll watch as that goes. Pete, are you someone that's jumping in on George Pickens?
I prefer T. Higgins, to be honest with you, who went a pick before Pickens. I do think Pickens is really nice value. I just find myself clicking on other wide receivers like Rashee Rice, Amari Cooper, and Higgins, where Pickens is going. But I think Pickens is still a nice value. I don't feel like it's not that I'm off of him. I just like players around him a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, it comes back to me and it happens to work out the way I wanted to. I get Evan Ingram here at the 6-6 spot. So I secure the tight end position. I almost went tight end 2 rounds ago. I almost went tight end last round. I almost took Ingram or Pitts, but I risked it to have one of them come back to me. And I'm starting to really fall in love with Evan Ingram this year for some reason. I just think there's a ton of value there, and where he's priced, I really find myself drafting him in a lot of leagues this year so far.
Our resident troll ATL, aka Small Doses, he wants to know, gentlemen, who is the one player you're looking to walk away with in drafts this season? I'm sure I'll say this, and I'm sure I'll magically get sniped tomorrow by a couple of goons in the home league draft, but I like Khalil Shakir. I mean, that's a guy who, based on his price, I think he's going to do well for fantasy. Got a lot of vacated targets out there in Buffalo. We talked about him a bunch the last few days. No more Stephon Diggs, no more Gabe Davis. So hard not to like Khalil Shakir. Pete, is there a player that you're trying to walk out of your drafts with?
Yeah, I mean, Shakir is probably one of them for sure for me. If not Shakir, I'll shift over to the running back position, and it's really Brian Robinson and Kenneth Walker. I'm starting to find myself more in on Walker as the process has gone on, and I think he's going to provide some top 12 value for sure. And you're getting him at a little bit of a discount, and then Brian Robinson, for what it's worth, like I don't really understand his price at all. To be completely honest with you, I mean, he's 103 off the board. I just don't understand running backs that's projected to have at least 220 to 250 touches, in my opinion, being outside the top 100. I think that's a little silly. So I like Brian Robinson this year.
Okay, there you go. I'm going to go ahead. I am going to take my first quarterback. Am I? No, I'm going to wait, actually. Screw that noise. Let's wait a little bit. In that case, I'm going to beef up running back a little bit longer. So my 2 picks, now I have 3 running backs. Earlier, I did take James Conner after George Pickens. Then I got my tight end with the 11th pick in the 7th round with Brock Bowers. Then I will take another running back, and then I'll probably cool my jets on running backs for a bit and just load up on some wide receivers and a quarterback. I did go with Zach Moss. I like Zach Moss over Chase Brown. Pete, I know you're more of a Chase Brown guy there in that backfield, but the draft capital you're spending is not too hard for either running back. So, but I'll roll the dice on Zach Moss. Pete, Brian Thomas, who you mentioned earlier, went one pick before you. Now you're up, and you take Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah,
I
really like the wide receivers in this round. Between Brian Robinson, JSN, and Christian Watson, like I find myself liking them more than the round before, where there's Addison, Keon Coleman, Deontay Johnson, Hollywood Brown. Like I prefer, honestly, all of those guys that I named: JSN, Brian Thomas, and Watson. I prefer probably all three. Maybe Brian Thomas not over Deontay Johnson, just from a volume perspective. But yeah, I like JSN this year. I also like Brock Purdy, and then obviously we had the flag plant. We had the flag plant show the other day. I was actually hoping Jaden Daniels would slide back to me if I took Purdy, just to get a guy with some upside. I don't mind taking like a Jared Goff either. My goal, if I don't get one of these top if I don't get one of these top quarterbacks, I'm shooting for like a Purdy or a Jordan Love. Even if I don't get Jordan Love, like if I'm looking at the Purdy or Tua range, or even like Jaden Daniels, I don't mind backing that up with like a Jared Goff. I think it's a pretty solid strategy. I love the pairing of Goff and Jaden Daniels, just because you get the high ceiling with Daniels, but the high floor with Goff, who was quarterback 7 last year, and he plays in 14 dome games. So
that's right. That's the big thing. All those dome games, plays very well indoors.
Yep, he definitely does. So yeah, so it's back to me. I took Shakir on the way back. Albert, how is Albert doing? Why don't you read off Albert?
Yeah, I was gonna give Albert a shout out after you were done, but I'll just go now. He's taken so far, after he took Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, Nico Collins, then he dipped into the running back pool with Kenneth Walker, Rashee Rice, Tony Pollard, which I like that pick, Mr. Jake Ferguson, whom me and Pete have a pizza bet over between him and George Kittle. Deontay Johnson, which again, I love that price, 8th round right there for the target share he's likely going to get. Brian Robinson, who you talked about a little bit earlier, Pete, Jared Goff, and then Joshua Palmer. So I dig it. I dig that start.
No, I definitely like that a lot. I think Albert's got a really good team, and then he's got the stack with St. Brown and Goff. I like it a lot.
Like a lot. All right, I'm gonna go with a guy who I've been buying into a little bit more as the off season draft season has gone on. I'm buying a little bit more into Jerry Jeudy. So, and Pete, I know that one hits close to home for you. You being a Broncos guy, you spent some lackluster years there, but still, I like it. I'll take the risk this late in the draft on him.
Yeah. Yep. I don't hate it.
As always, I just got to stay on brand here, Pete. I do draft Brandon Cooks, so I have to stay on brand there.
Hey, listen, sometimes people never change, man. Some people never change. So I want to talk a little draft strategy here.
Sure.
So if you are drafting this weekend, we're coming up here with our last 2 picks, right? Like we didn't have defenses or kickers in this draft. So personally, for me, like with my late picks, I tend to shy away from the rookie wide receivers, and I tend to go with more veterans because I think the rookie wide receivers sometimes, like if they're not the top guys, like they tend to be buried on the depth chart a little bit, and maybe like they're the 3rd or 4th option. So I like to go with like the rookie running backs with upside, guys that I'm targeting, and you've heard these names a lot, like Jalen Wright, Ray Davis, Blake Corum. Blake Corum's probably the more expensive out of the bunch of those kinds of rookie running backs, but I like taking those rookie running backs because, in my opinion, they can have a workload quicker if they're the number 2 back, and if they're not, like take the Jalen Wright pick, like Mostert and A-Chain, like they obviously have that injury history, and I think they're going to find ways to. maybe get right on the field a little bit early, even without the injuries. So that's what I like to do. And then honestly, like if you're looking for like a high upside swing at the end of drafts, like I really like taking Dontavian Wicks. He's a guy that I like a lot. Yeah. Cock balls. But I like
pardon,
taking.
sir.
So what about you? Have you thought about that kind of strategy? Do you lean on taking, rookies? Like, do you prefer veterans towards the end of your drafts? Like, what do you generally prefer?
I suppose probably veterans. But I mean, I've never really had a strong stance on either, but
Yeah.
I would probably say veterans, I guess. Guys that I think have the ability to, like, if there's, like, for example, my last pick here was Antonio Gibbs. That's another guy I just can't quit, but
Yeah.
I think there's some value there. So that's kind of what I'm going with. And it's a backfield. We're not talking about, I know Ramondre Stevenson's a good back. I know he's going, at the upper end of drafts, but it's not as impenetrable of a depth chart as, say, Christian McCaffrey with the Niners or something like that. There is an opportunity here for him to get work, especially in the passing game. So I don't mind taking a stab at a veteran like Antonio Gibson at that point. So, but I've never really had a hard stance. For me, it's just however the draft is flowing, the position I need, and so on and so forth. But
yeah, I actually like Antonio Gibson a little bit too this year because I think that team could find themselves in like long down and distances, and I think it bodes well for Gibson to get on the field in passing down situations. Stevenson can catch the ball, but those longer like 3rd and 7s and plus, like, which I think the Patriots may find themselves in due to like penalties and just not having a great offense.
Right.
And if May is like playing earlier on, like after a couple weeks, like new rookie quarterback, like mental mistakes at the line, like they could be in longer down and distances. And I think that bodes well for Gibson. So I want to do 2 things before we head out. This was obviously a quick, short show. 2 questions. Number 1, is there any type of advice that you could give somebody that maybe is drafting right now or going to draft later today or tomorrow? What is the one thing, maybe even like what's the one thing that you have even learned yourself? And Albert, thanks for joining us. We can go over our teams, but I want to hear from you. What is like one thing this offseason that you've learned as a drafter, as an analyst? Is there anything that comes out and sticks to mind for yourself?
Walk into a draft with a plan based on the settings, the scoring, the rules, but also have the ability to adapt because no draft is the same. And if you stick with a plan you want to go with, and if the draft is going a different way than what your plan is, you could end up with a disaster of a team. So have the ability to adapt on the fly is what I would really tell people. Don't be too stubborn with your plan. If it works, it works. But if you need to change course, like if you had your eye on a particular guy and then he went, don't just go with a guy that you don't believe in then. Yeah. So just have that ability to adapt. That's the biggest thing I would say.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I think that's the big thing is, sometimes everybody's got a plan. It's always that famous quote, like everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? Like you have to sometimes like when our draft like isn't going the way that we planned, we press and we start to reach. And I'm all for getting your guy, but I also like, if you're somebody who's like, hey, like I want to get one of the elite quarterbacks early. Like that doesn't mean go reach and get one if the first couple go off the board and there's great value at other positions like that you may want to take a swing at. Like you have to just adapt to the board and that's why tiers, in my opinion, are so important because these tiers tell us everything. Like if I'm drafting and the running backs, like if there's one running back in my tier, like tier 2, and there's let's say there's one running back in my tier 2, but there's 6 wide receivers in my tier 2 left. Like right. I know, hey, like if I don't grab this next running back, like then I'm putting myself in a hole because by the time if I take wide receiver and it comes back to me. Now I'm drafting a running back in tier 3 that I'm not in love with or don't like that much, but I feel like I'm drafting that running back out of desperation because I'm like, look at the running backs that are left in that tier, because you didn't get it. So I definitely can respect your answer there. Why don't we read off the teams, and then I have one more question for you. So
We also
give me your team.
That we'll get to. But yeah, but let's read off the teams first.
Yeah.
If you want to read off your team, then I'll
Sure.
read off Albert and mine.
Yeah. So I got Brock Purdy. Went RB hero here a little bit. I took Breece Hall and Kamara, my RB 1 and 2. It's a 3 wide receiver league, so I have Drake London, DJ Moore, and Devonta Smith. I follow that up with Evan Ingram, and then I could start JSN, Javonte Williams, Khalil Shakir, Chuba Hubbard, Jalen Wright, or Dontavian Wicks in my flex spot. Hoff obviously doesn't love my draft, but I actually didn't hate it.
I liked your draft. I just don't like Wicks.
Okay, that's fair.
That's it.
Bing bang, bing bang.
So there you go. Anthony would be hating this right now.
Yeah.
All right, so let me get into my team, and then we'll mention Albert's team, of course. So as he was kind enough to draft with us, my team, I end up getting Tua at quarterback. Then my running backs, I go Saquon Barkley, James Conner, Zach Moss, and then Antonio Gibson at the end. There's Brock Bowers is my lone tight end, and then there's a slew of wide receivers: Garrett Wilson, Malik Neighbors, Jalen Waddle, George Pickens, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and Mr. Brandon Cooks, whom I just can't quit. So that's the next sound drop we're going to get soon, a la Brokeback Mountain. But yeah, that's my team. I dig it. I like it. I would be happy if I walked away. I was looking to stack one of those big wide receivers with a quarterback, and Tua wound up being that guy. So I am more than okay with drafting Tua. So
I dig it.
Albert's team, he went Jared Goff, which he pairs with Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's a beautiful thing. Rest of his wide receivers are Chris Olave, Nico Collins. Then he's got Deontay Johnson, Joshua Palmer. So that's very nice as well. Running backs, Kenneth Walker, Tony Pollard, Brian Robinson, Jaleel McLaughlin. And tight end is Jake Ferguson, Turd Ferguson. So there you go. Who will not be he's going to be outscored by George Kittle this year, as per our pizza bet. So there you go.
The only advice I'd give Albert, I like his team a lot. He's got Goff. Instead of Stafford, I may have tried to follow that up with like a Will Levis, maybe somebody with a little bit more upside, because I think Goff and Stafford are kind of similar. So just in my opinion, I may have tried like even taking like a Justin Fields as a stash on the bench. Just to have like a young upside guy at quarterback. So I like guys that I like, or even like Bryce Young or Will Levis. Like that would be my thing. But other than that, I like his draft a lot. Pollard and Robinson are two guys I'm targeting heavy. And Ferguson is pretty much the end of the tier for tight ends. And would you have taken Ferguson over Bowers? Because Ferguson went a couple picks before Bowers. Would you have taken him over Bowers or?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, they're not that far apart from me. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind making that decision. So
yeah.
We do have a couple questions we'll get to. ATL Small Doses is doing his homework to try and make sure he has the best draft tomorrow, because he's got a lot of picks. But when you have a lot of picks in a home league draft, it doesn't matter if you don't know what to do with them. But he's asking, Brock Purdy or Jaden Daniels, which QB do you prefer in a keeper league moving forward for years to come? To be clear, just for context, Pete, it is you can keep up to 4 players on your roster, and there is no penalty. So it's not like a pick penalty. And he's staring down the barrel of having the first 2 picks in tomorrow's draft. So where do you think he should go in that instance with a quarterback for years to come? Purdy or Daniels?
Yeah, I mean, because it's a keeper, even with it being a keeper, though, what is the round designation for Jaden Daniels is my question. Like, what would be do you know offhand, Hoff, what it would cost him?
No, but that's the thing. It doesn't cost you
It
anything.
doesn't cost them anything. Okay.
Nope, doesn't cost you anything.
Then I probably prefer Daniels for the upside.
Yeah.
Normally I would say Purdy, but because it's a keeper league, the fact that you could keep him next year, I would take Daniels and then maybe try to go for like a Goff, kind of like we talked about, like a Goff or even a Stafford.
This is a 2 QB league too, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. So, and who does he have a quarterback, or would this be his QB1?
He's got Tua.
Yeah. If you have Tua, then Daniels is the guy.
Yeah,
for sure.
I would say Daniels as well. I mean, I love Brock Purdy. If this was just like you were saying, if this wasn't keeper, then I go Brock Purdy without blinking.
Me too.
But because it's a keeper league, I would probably go Daniels. But so there you go. That's your there's your answer, and you're getting no other answers from me off air. So milk this while you can, buddy. TS did ask a question. He said, I drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown and Gibbs in the first 2 rounds. Will that screw me, or do you think it will work? I don't think it screws you. I think you're putting your eggs in the Detroit Lions basket, but there are worse offenses to do that with. No, I'm completely okay with that. As long as you're not conflicting too many other bye weeks with those positions, because then you get into trouble. Like if you draft too much of one team, you hit that one bye week, that could be dicey. But no, I think you're just fine with St. Brown and Gibbs. Pete, do you have any issues with that? He also did want to say that it's full PPR.
No, I have no issue. I think because this team doesn't have many target hogs, Gibbs is probably the third option in the receiving workload room, at least. I mean, they did bring in Tim Patrick, which is kind of interesting. He is such a Detroit Lions guy. I think it's such a great fit for them. It's funny. The Broncos get Josh Reynolds and Detroit gets Tim Patrick. Pretty much both teams swapped players. But yeah, I think it's good. I actually would probably prefer that than going like Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill. I'd actually prefer having the combination of the two. The only thing is Mostert, I guess maybe A-Chain and Tyreek Hill are probably better comps because they're closer in the second round with Gibbs and A-Chain. I'd still lean the Detroit side in that situation.
All right, and we'll get to one last question. Once they stop rolling in, then we'll just go off air because this is a short show. But if we get questions, we will answer them. I don't believe Pete's on a time constraint right now, so even though his wife's getting dialed up, or fiance is getting dialed up, so Black Rain 7920 on YouTube. Thank you for the question, sir. He said 6th pick. If Hall, that being Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, are gone, who should I take? And I think you're taking, to me, I mean, this depends on how nervous you are about where that holdout is at. But, Jamar Chase might be there. I know in this mock that we just did, I know Justin Jefferson went towards the front of the draft, which I thought was kind of surprising. But some people are worried about Sam Darnold over there. So we're going to find out how quarterback-proof Justin Jefferson really is. I would go with something like that, perhaps. So those are the 2 names that jump off to me. Pete, are you in line with that thinking, or is there another player that comes to mind for you if Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson are gone at the 6?
Yeah, so I mean, let's just play it out here for a second. So Bijan, Breece, CMC, let's just assume all 3 of them are gone. Let's assume CeeDee Lamb is gone. That makes it 4. And then let's just assume Tyreek Hill is gone. That's 5. I would go Jamar Chase. If Chase and Hill and I think it's Chase. Because I'm thinking wide receiver wise, if you're at the 6th spot, that means 5 players. We already know all 3 running backs went, and that means only 2 of the receivers have gone, and it's probably Hill or and I'd flip it too. Like if Chase is gone, I would go Tyreek Hill at the 6th spot as well.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, if that happens, then it's an absolute gift, and you draft Tyreek, and then you basically just laugh.
Yeah, so, pretty much. Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So that's pretty much going to do what? Oh wait, you said you had one more question.
I had a question.
You had a question
because I want to incorporate this as we kind of, a little kind of Barstooly like where they do their Mount Rushmores. So kind of wanted to start doing that for us a little bit too. We don't have to call it Mount Rushmores. Maybe we call it something else. But I want to talk, in spirit of college football being back today. I would like to do like a quick 2-round or 3-round, tailgate food draft real quick, since it's just us two, and just have a little bit of fun with it. I'll let you go first since I proposed it, and we'll do a little snake order. But if you're in the 101 and you're talking, tailgate food, what is your number one overall pick?
Pulled pork, without even thinking.
Mm.
Give me some good pulled pork. Get that barbecue sauce. If you have those Hawaiian buns, you put that on there. Oh man, you could eat about 4,500 of those.
Yeah, I pulled pork, especially if you're like going to like a colder climate, like like if it's like a game in like November, December, like that's like some comfort food right there. That I like that a lot. I think for me, with the 102, and then I have another pick coming back. I think I go chili. I really love chili. I've never had Skyline chili, so if we have any, people in Ohio that want to tell us if it's good or not, I always wanted to try Skyline chili. I hear it's not always what it's cracked up to be, but I'd go chili with the 102, and then with the 2-1, I think I go. I mean, it's got to be wings. It's got to be wings for me. Flats I like flats over drumsticks. So I'm hoping that my pick I wanted to take comes back to me. But I go wings and chili with my first two picks here.
The FF mediators did say that I'm a very smart man because pulled pork is the move. It reminds me of his North Carolina tailgates. So what are we at? What? So are we doing? Am I doing 2 more picks or 1 more pick?
We're gonna go to 4. We're gonna go 4.
Oh, go 4. Okay.
You'll have 3 technically. So you take 2 now, and then you'll get the last pick.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go. This one is easy. This one's common, but I think if you're tailgating, you're walking around, you have a drink in your hand. Sometimes it's a bitch to hold a plate. Give me and I'm going to stay a little bit in the pork family. Give me a bacon cheeseburger. Let me just walk around with that thing. Maybe you're playing some cornhole and you got one hand for the burger, the other hand to throw. So it's simple, it's easy, but I take it. I like it. After that, where would I go after that? Oh man. See, we got all the good stuff out of the way.
Yeah, hey, you could always put the pulled pork on the cheeseburger too.
You could do that too. You could just be disgusting and do that. Absolutely.
That's phenomenal.
Then you might be napping by halftime, but you could do that. You know what? I can't think of another thing off the top of my head, so I'm going to go basic again though, because they're staples though, and and you need your staples. I'm going to go with a hot dog, which by the way, you can incorporate the chili with the hot dog. You could, multifaceted. So I know those are simple answers, but those are
simple.
Again, I'm thinking priority. You need to have a drink in your hand, or you're playing a game. You need your hands free, or maybe you're checking your fantasy line before the game, or maybe you're watching us.
Yeah,
so, you need one hand free. So
I was gonna go hot dog too on the way back. I figured I could get that with the last pick. So
no, sir, sniped you.
There's nothing wrong with being a little basic. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm
just a basic bitch.
I'm gonna go a little weird here though.
Okay.
And I'm gonna go with pierogies.
Ooh, that's not weird. That is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm gonna go pierogies.
Bing bong,
I love
bing bong, bing.
You got you got 3 big bongs for that. I was very excited. That's it.
I feel like if you're like, especially like at a New York tailgate, like you could find a lot of Polish people that especially in New York, that tailgate with pierogies. It's not an uncommon thing. That's why I say it's weird, because maybe outside of our the Northeast region, maybe it is a little weird. So I'd go pierogies. So that would mean I have I have the wings, I have pierogies, and then my first pick was the chili.
Yes.
Chili. Yeah. I think with my last pick, this has to be a good one because it has to close it out. And then we do have Todd Jones. We'll get to your question in just a second, Todd.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. With the last pick for me, I mean, can you pick a?
No pressure here.
Yeah, I keep thinking like drinks, but honestly, I guess fried chicken. I mean, I don't know. If somebody comes
Oh
up,
yeah.
if somebody comes through, like not chicken tenders, but like I'm talking like, you have somebody that makes some fried chicken and brings it. Even if you get it from like KFC, I don't care. Like
Sure.
fried chicken would close out my side.
Popeyes
for sure.
action,
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
My last one, then I'll go with kind of inspired by your pierogies. I'm gonna go with a knish. Because keep that potato action in there. Put a little weight in your stomach there. The knish is always good with a hot dog. Yeah. You could be absolutely disgusting and put a knish on a bacon cheeseburger with some pulled pork. You might be dead.
Nothing wrong with that.
You might have to call an EMT before you take the first bite and say, "Listen, just start making your way over." But yeah, that's what I would go with. So yeah, that's nice. It was fun.
We'll throw up a poll. We'll throw up a poll and see, who people think what side they prefer.
And the good thing about this is that Anthony is not here, so because he would not allow this to happen.
Yeah,
he would be saying, "Who cares? Who cares?"
Yeah, we like to have fun. It's a Saturday, it's in the spirit of college football. You know what I mean?
That's right. All right, so there you go. Oh, we did have one more question, right? You said you wanted to get to Todd Jones, not to be confused with Tom Jones. What's new, Pussycat? He said full point PPR. 5th pick, thinking Amon-Ra St. Brown first round, Saquon pick 2, and Hurts round 3. Is that a good plan? Yeah, that's a good plan to me. I would just tell you, kind of like I was saying earlier, when Pete asked, like, what's one thing you walk into your drafts with?
Yeah.
I would say be prepared for that to not pan out, though, because not to say that it won't, but it could not pan out. So, it might, but I like it if you can execute it. But if you can't, don't be afraid to pivot.
Yeah, and it depends who you have in your draft. I mean, like I'm in the PA area, so like I know I have a lot of Eagles fans, hoping that Saquon gets to me. If you're picking at the 105, let's just assume it's a 10 or a 12 man. The odds of getting Saquon on the way back is not as high in a home league with a lot of Eagles fans. And again, this is just if it was me, I know my league mates, and then getting Jalen Hurts, could be tough on the way back. But to Hoff's point, like. That's why we say, like, it's you gotta have a plan to pivot, right? Like, and that's the most important thing. But it's good to also have an idea of. I would have a couple of guys in mind in that range next to him that you're looking at. So,
don't be afraid. Adapt or die. That's it. So
adapt or die, baby. Salvador said, So I guess the food talk made him hungry. I'm getting hungry too. So
yeah, I'm getting there. Getting there. So, all right. I think that's it for us, right?
Yeah.
Nice little 43-minute show. That's good. Yeah. I'll take it. All right. Pete, do you have anything to say before we ride off into the sunset? Maybe some words of wisdom for anybody drafting? Anything that's on your mind? Maybe how obliterated you're going to get in a couple hours?
Yeah, I mean, if I have a lot of people, and Hoff does too, where people just send us a tweet and they just ask their questions. If for whatever reason you're listening to this, you couldn't catch the show, tweet us or even ask in the YouTube after this closes out. You can comment on it. But we're more than happy to help. I'll be around. I am at a wedding today, so I will be limited, but I am still happy to help. And if I don't get to your YouTube question, if you send it there, Hoff and Anthony or even Steve will get to it as well. And just have some fun, and get your guys. I think that's the biggest thing too. Get your guys and have some fun today. And football's around the corner. We got a couple days left, and college football is going to be on today. So I'm ready to roll.
Hook 'em horns, 3:00. All right. So yes, that is going to do it. And I feel like this is like the last show before it's like week 1 prep time.
Yeah.
So this was nice to kind of put a bow on what has been a very successful offseason on YouTube for us. We appreciate you guys immensely.
Yeah.
While you're there on YouTube, if you're asking a question, hit the like button, subscribe to our content, hit the bell icon, be notified every single time we go live. But yeah, that's going to do it. Pete, you can hit the outros soon if you are able to.
I'm not able to, so you got to roll that.
I'll do something. All right. It's just going to be a little awkward. Don't be afraid to be awkward. That's another thing. Don't be afraid to pivot in your drafts. Don't be afraid to be awkward in life. But until next time, that's going to do it for this wonderful program. I'll tell you, until next time, stay thirsty, be kind to one another. We will catch you guys on the flip side. Cheers. If I can find the